watched a vlog today that was done by Andrea, and she was talking about her story in terms of how she was introduced and met the people of Destiny and how they supported her in her world, and basically giving a good example of how what is actually required in terms of support from the perspective of the kind of support that's actually needed in order to change oneself, and that support is actually being given through Destiny. So if you haven't seen that blog, I would suggest have a look at that. And what's fascinating is that, I mean, you can hear in the vlog that she made that there was such an extensive amount of support given towards her to support her in standing up within her world. And she's just one person. So I wanted to give my perspective as well, because what I experienced when I first encountered Destiny was something that I'd never experienced before, that I didn't, from a certain perspective, that I didn't even know existed. And this was in regards to the kind of support that I received, and I was a complete stranger. So I mean, here you have one case of Andrea giving her story and explaining the amount of, say, energy and effort required to actually supporting someone like that, and that in fact it isn't just one person, it's that everyone that goes through Destiny. Many of us have been to the farm, and we can attest to that as well, in terms of the amount of attention that one receive in terms of the required support for one to be able to change oneself. So my experience initially when finding Destiny was I saw one of the videos and I emailed Destiny and I said, I didn't exactly know who I was emailing, but I saw the videos. I saw like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe a little bit more, and I was at a stage in my life where I was like searching for an answer, and I'd been doing that for the last, 7 to 9 months, something like that. And so I emailed Destiny and I said, can you help me? Or I said, I don't normally do this, but can you help me? And then I waited, in anticipation, because the videos were quite intriguing. So, I mean, I just didn't, it seemed like a reasonable thing to do. I didn't really know. It was just like, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask, if they can support me in any way. I don't know. And so a few days later, I got an email back saying, go to the forums. I didn't know there was forums. So I went to the forums, and that was a part of Destiny. So I started asking questions on the forum, and I introduced myself, hello, and I seen the videos, and I have a question, and it was most likely in regards to my experience in relation to, in terms of what they were saying, in terms of the mind and one's experience. And so I asked questions because, I mean, from what I heard, I'm like, well, this is very fascinating stuff, and this could actually support me given my current situation. And so I asked a question. But before I get to the response, I just want to talk about where I was at that point in time, because as mentioned, I had basically, in a way, slowed down quite a bit in terms of doing paintings. It was still there as a aspect of my world which I was pursuing, but everything was becoming very heavy, and I didn't really have, it was like, yeah, just becoming heavy, and I was not doing much at all. I was kind of at home, and reading lots of reading and research in terms of trying to find out what the fuck is going on in this world and how can I, really lead a fulfilling and successful life. And nothing was working, and I was within a point of depression. And so, I guess I'm not going to go too much into that, but when I asked the question on the forum, what I got was like this massive document to my, one sentence. What's this and this and this? How does this work? Or I have this experience. What's going on? And I would get these massive documents, and I was so perplexed. And I started looking at the questions that people would ask. There was a few, well, not so many people on the forums at that point. I remember Daryl was there asking questions, and the responses that we were receiving were these massive responses. And the amount of time and effort that would go into such a response was the point which I'd never seen before or experienced before in my world, in this reality, in terms of another being supporting another being. It was immense, and I just, it was like so cool. So initially, right away, I experienced that point of support like I've never experienced before, not even within my own family, which is very interesting. And so I took advantage of it. Continued to just ask questions and participate on the forum because they were there and they were supporting people that were coming to the forum, and it was very cool. And from a certain perspective, I didn't even initially realize my situation. I didn't realize the amount of effort that goes into actually one requiring to change oneself. And it wasn't until I got to the farm when I started to realize the effects of the intervention or the amount of support that is required. And this is real support. This is real time given. It's like this world functions within a system of time, and there's only so much time before you die, and everything is equated to this point of death and this point of money in terms of your world. And if you have a lot of money, then you can maybe spend a little more time enjoying yourself. But mostly people work 40 hours a week, so time is not something that is easily given away. Yet my experience at Desteni was like just shattering these boundaries, these parameters, which until that point no one had ever dared to give up their free time to support another person. And it wasn't even like they were just giving up their free time. They were giving up their free time and more, and just it was immense. So one of the so when I got to the farm, it was just it was quite incredible in terms of they're actually there to support you. And obviously it's a self-supportive process that one walk, and if you're not going to support yourself, you're not going to get support. So I just made sure I took care of that point, made sure I pushed myself, disciplined myself to always be supporting myself, and identify where those moments come up where I actually go into wanting or needing someone else to support me. And within identifying those points, release them and get back to myself as being the starting point of my own support. And also pushing myself to ask for support when I get into a point that is tough. But I was still, when I got to the farm, I'm still talking about this point of receiving support in ways that are unexpected. You know, it's like you just don't expect it. And um, this was experienced particularly when, let's see, when I got to the farm. You know, first initially it was like just relax and settle down or whatever, and um, you know, it wasn't like you just showed up and that's it. You're left by yourself. You know, it was like there was someone there beside you. You know, walking with you as you got there. I remember initially Bernard showed me around the farm and just he was just there pointing stuff out. You know, these are the bathrooms. This is where we keep our food, and just giving me a general tour. And it wasn't like, you know, I was left alone. When I got to the airport, there was people there to pick me up. There was 4 people that came. I'm sure they had stuff to do, but you know, I get my ride. It's basic stuff, yet at the same time, there's these small points that have come through since participating with Desteni. One of them being that point of just having a presence around is supportive in itself. Um, you know, and sort of bringing that into view for, you know, people to see. They don't see that in this world. I never did. So it was cool. It was like there was always someone there, you know, in a way. And so, yeah, my first day I was just showed around, and then I kind of went into the living room and was like quite nervous, and everyone kind of just gathered around, and they offered me a coffee, which I gladly welcomed, and you know, I just sat there and chatted initially and got comfortable. Um, it was either that same day or the next day that, you know, Bernard was there and he suggested to Andrea to give a NOT session, which is a form of kinesiology, which she talked about that she did. And it's automatically, now this person has to give their time and energy now to some visitor that's just showed up, and like she's got to now physically take the time and focus, and I mean it's energy, and you know what I mean. So she gives me one of the NOTs, and you know, and it didn't fail. Anytime a visitor would show up, or anytime the point was required, it was there. You know, no matter who you were, no matter what I thought of the person, um, it was like that consistent point of support was always there, and specifically in relation to, you know, giving them going through the kinesiology sessions, which were pretty cool. This is before we did SRA, just as a point of support to support the person to settle down and relax, and so that was quite cool to see. Now, when I went into the agreement on the farm with Andrea, we started doing these resonant interviews, and I mean, I'm not even talking about the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of conversation that was given to me in terms of just discussing about, you know, what's going on with me in detail and giving perspective and different applications I could utilize to support myself, and maybe what points I wasn't considering. It was like a constant application in terms of the people on the farm supporting, in this case, me to actually change. And it was constant. It was always there. It wasn't like you just say, you have to change, and then that's it. No, it was like, so the amount of effort that went in to one single being being supported to change, I mean, is immense. And that's just from my experience of me alone within them supporting me within my process of, you know, realizing, okay, this is something I have to do, going to the farm, and then, you know, walking that process till now. And I'm just one person. How many people have been to the farm and have gone through that? So when we did the resident interviews, you know, it was just fascinating because here I am, I'm just a person, I'm just a normal person like anyone else. I don't have any special value to these people at all. Um, I'm just me, that's it. And, but, okay, so in the agreement, it was like, first point when there was friction or throughout the process, we started getting resident interviews as support, to support the agreement, to support me, to support Andrea. This was like sitting down and, you know, within everything that they're doing, within creating the SRA, um, you know, developing the farm, there was a lot of stuff going on at that point in terms of, you know, what they're busy with daily. And here now, taking more time, which seems like there, you know, really is nothing left of time to be able to give as support, but finding the time to set time aside, sit down, and we would have these long discussions about specifically going into detail with regards to the points. And it's just like, you know, I'm like blinking my eyes, like, is this really happening? Like, how is it possible in a way that this this exists where I'm able to receive this level of support? This is like, I'm not even giving myself this much support from a certain perspective. Obviously that I am, you know, kind of exaggerating to illustrate the point, but I remember sitting down and having a conversation in the kitchen one time with Bernard about the art of communication. And I remember it was in that moment as well that I kind of, you know, it was just like one of those points again where it just really sunk in. Like, there was no reason for anyone to be sitting there with me, discussing anything with me at all. But yet, I was being supported. You know, my problems. How many millions of people have problems in this world? And how many people were on the farm? And, you know, there's lots of stuff to do, and yet, you know, I've got an issue. So it's like, but it wasn't, it was taken, I don't know, it was like taken seriously or given the necessary attention. I didn't ask for it. It was just there. It just happened. It's like, you know, and so a human being sitting down and spending, you know, it was an hour or two, but it felt like immense in terms of the amount of support within that simple point of actually, you know, being there for someone and not just sitting there and thinking, oh, I got to get this over with and then get back to what I'm doing. But it's like sitting there with another human being and going into detail and supporting them in the best way that you can. And, you know, hours, as mentioned, hours and hours and hours, various different situations, going through points over and over and over and over. So, you know, that's me. That's my experience. I'm one person. And so from my perspective, that is a world that I would like. That is a world that I see would benefit humanity. And so that's one reason why I continue participating with Desteni, because I've never experienced that kind of support anywhere. I don't see it anywhere in this world. So if I can support in bringing that kind of attention and support and assistance to this reality that we begin to apply as human beings towards each other, then that's cool. So I just wanted to share that my experience in terms of being supported by Destiny to stand up within my world and to get to a position where I'm stable, where I'm confident, where I'm effective in this reality. When I first went to the farm, I went for 6 months. And I, as I mentioned, was extensively supported. And then I left. And, I was like, okay, I kind of had to just bear it and go because it was time to go. My passport was running out. I didn't want to go, and I left. And I went back to Calgary, and I got back and was looking for a job. I didn't have a job. My money was, I don't even know if I had any money. I had very little money, and I was here for about a month. And just essentially given up the point of, going back there at any time soon. I thought I'd go back at some point, maybe in the future, but it was like irrelevant to look at. I just had to focus on getting myself established, and so I just started, doing the daily activities that I would do in the system. And one day, about a month later, only a month later, I got an email from Desteni. I think it was from Layla, saying that they would like me to come back to the farm and, would I like to go back, make the necessary arrangements, and they were looking at ways to fund the ticket for me because they realized I didn't have any money. And in fact, it was another forum member that pledged the amount. So this didn't come from the people at Desteni, but came from another forum participant who put the money forth to pay my ticket to go back to the farm. And they weren't even on the farm. They were paying me to go to the farm. So from my perspective, the reason that was arranged was because they'd spent 6 months with me. I'd spent 6 months with them. And the support came through, but it was like, from their perspective, it wasn't satisfactory, meaning I needed more time. I needed more time to change. I needed more support. I was there for 6 months, participating with them already for a year beforehand. And I just required more stability within myself, and therefore they didn't just leave me hanging often out in the matrix by myself. You had your chance, that's it. They brought me back to the farm for more support. So yeah, that was fascinating. So yeah, that's my experience with Desteni, the evil cult. In terms of what support actually is in this world, and how do we actually support each other to change, and what's it going to take to change, because I know it's taken me a fuck of a lot to get to where I am now, and I know I have a long ways to go, but I am more stable within my world. Even if it's like, even if I'm not just flying through the system, succeeding, and fully mastering the system, I am at a stage where I'm able to stand here and move forward. And I wasn't moving forward before I was stopped moving. I was moving backwards. I was moving down. I was losing the battle, you could say. So, yeah, that's my story in terms of my experience in relation to Desteni.